Hello, everyone, and welcome back into the GSMC Dead Ball Sports Podcast, brought to you as always by the GSMC Sports Network. Before we get into our second segment of today's show, I want to remind you, as always, to continue making yourselves available to the Super Chat, Super Thanks, and Super Stickers features here on YouTube. As always, a great way to get your opinions and input and feedback out there. You can do it through our website as well, gsmcpodcast.net. You can do a question, comment, or concern you have with the show, a tip or donation, what have you. Anything is genuinely appreciated by the shows around the network and us as well, but also just makes our shows that much better and more interactive. Without further ado, let's get into our second segment today. Like I said, we're going to be talking about two different teams that ESPN just released. First and foremost, the all-rookie team in the NFL, one of the best classes in recent memory in NFL history, this 2024 class. A little bit of a preview there. I just want to talk about this team. I really think that a lot of fans can be apprehensive and skeptical about this team, but I do think it represents a lot of where these different franchises are building towards or already have in terms of the foundation. Obviously, we all know who the QB is, and we all know what he's doing right now. But all these other guys, how these franchises really got to where they are and made the decision to draft them and made the decision to build their teams around them. And while most of these guys on these teams aren't going to be anywhere near the playoffs for quite some time, it's still interesting to think about and imagine a world where we get to see a lot of these names grow into being some of the best of their respective positions. And so that's what makes this all-rookie team offense very interesting, because while these guys are on teams that didn't have a great season and they had a great season, they're just going to get better and better and hopefully be the reason why the impetus needed for their teams to reach higher heights, even though some of these guys already are doing incredible things, as suggested by the QBs. Without further ado, let's jump right into it. Obviously, everyone knows the QB is going to be on this team. It's Jayden Daniels. This is perhaps the most incredible rookie quarterback season we've ever seen. He's one win away from being the first ever rookie to start a Super Bowl in NFL history. But one of the most interesting stats that I found in ESPN's assessment of Jayden Daniels' season is this. We always talk about this young man's unflappable poise, command in the pocket, his calm, cool, collected nature. And this is the stat that I believe best exemplifies that. In the regular season, on fourth down, Jayden Daniels had a very, very impressive mark of a 92% conversion rate. That goes to show that not only are the Washington Commanders entrusting Jayden Daniels to make important decisions in critical moments, but that Jayden Daniels can deliver, unlike many other quarterbacks in the NFL. He's doing this at a better clip than a lot of teams. And they gave the Detroit Lions a taste of their own medicine with this formula. So that stat to me, even though he has so many impressive stats, one of the top leaders in completion percentage, passing yards this season, touchdown to interception ratio, that stat goes to show this is not a fluke, and the Commanders actually believe in what Jayden Daniels is doing. I'm sorry, I was thinking about C.J. Stroud last season, but Jayden Daniels, the reason why a lot of people are saying that this kid is going to be one of the greats over the next 10 years or so, is because the Washington Commanders already believe of him as a great. They already are instilling this confidence in him to take them to the promised land. And now they're 2 wins away from their first Super Bowl appearance since '91. And it's not a fluke. And so that's why I feel like I had to present that stat to you, no matter how unimportant it may seem, to further hammer home the point that Jayden Daniels is already playing like a big-time NFL quarterback. It's the reason he's perhaps the best in terms of his play this postseason left in the playoffs this year. Even though you have Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen on one side, he's playing Jalen Hurts, who has a myriad number of experience in these situations. So, seeing as to how Jaden Daniels is already playing like a all-pro quarterback, don't be surprised to see him reach greater heights than just an all-rookie team. He's going to be on an all-time team when all is said and done over the next 50 or so years when we look back at this class and these players. But I digress, even though I really would love to talk about Jaden Daniels as much as possible because we have other rookies to talk on this team, and this is where we get kind of interesting. At the running back position, not really many rookies stood out except for one, and that is Bucky Irving. I think he had a really impressive season, seeing as to how on the Bucs it was looking like it was going to be a committee approach of both him, White, and then Tucker emerged later in the year. But Bucky Irving, here's an interesting stat in terms of the reason why he's the running back on this team. He's the only rookie running back to rush for more than 1,100 yards on fewer than 240 attempts. So it's quantity rather than quality that sees Bucky. And I'm not indicting his quality, because it's the reason why the Bucs offense was so diverse. It's the reason why Baker Mayfield was allowed to do a lot more things in this offense and himself led the league in touchdowns. It's because of what Bucky Irving opened up for him. And even in those moments where Mike Evans and Chris Godwin went down for a considerable amount of time, Bucky Irving really helped the Bucs in those situations. He carried a load in the absence of those two studs. And it speaks dividends that the Bucs were able to find him in the 5th, 6th round, because I feel like if you're a team like the Bucs, you know you're good enough to get into the postseason, but you need to find players in the latter stages of the draft to really supplement that, and you have to hit on them rather than just try and get a position of need and reach for a player. And this pick for them and Bucky Irving was almost the perfect situation, because they needed a guy in the backfield that could complement the high-powered offense with Baker, Mike Evans, and Chris Godwin. And it might have to be the case going forward, as Chris Godwin and Mike Evans are slated to hit free agency very soon, especially with Chris, because he's someone who, coming off that injury, is really going to be focused on understanding his future, especially in his career, and not just, whether or not he extends with the Bucs. So the fact that Bucky Irving emerged for a team like Tampa Bay is integral to their continued success, but also in terms of whether or not they can break through in the NFC and truly become a Super Bowl contender. So that's why I'm really excited to see a guy like Bucky Irving make this offense on ESPN's all-rookie team, because of the fact that Tampa is one of those teams who are on the precipice of something great, but need a player like Bucky to continue to perform in order to truly go over the cliff, if you know what I'm saying. But I do think that out of all the running backs of the rookie class, Bucky Irving was the standout one in my opinion. Now in terms of wide receivers, this is where it gets a little bit dicey, and a lot of fans will be up in arms, especially of a certain team here in the tri-state area with this one. But I do think that it's well warranted, well deserved for how this young man was playing as well, just because of the fact that when you look at the future of the Jacksonville Jaguars, you can see a situation where this young man becomes one of the league's best receivers and really helps a guy like Trevor Lawrence grow, and that is Brian Thomas Jr. This was a difficult year for him. It was a difficult year for Jacksonville because not a lot of things went right. Doug Peterson was just fired. They're still looking for a new head coach. We'll talk about that in the coming weeks. But Brian Thomas truly was a very nice bright spot for them. He had a 2.61 yard per route run with the combination of Lawrence and Jones. Not necessarily the best quarterbacks throwing to you. But you could also say that in the terms of the Malik Neighbors, who also had various number of random quarterbacks throwing the football to him, you could also make the case that he should be here as well. But when you are someone for a team that really has a lot less control of their destiny than you think, and are slowly bursting at the seams. They now just fired as well GM Trent Baalke, and I believe they fired Shad Khan as well. But when you look at the Jacksonville Jaguars and how they operate, it's amazing that they were able to retain a player and address a need in the draft that could appeal to the future of this franchise, and not just its fans, but the head coach as well. Because having a guy like Brian Thomas is going to be important for someone like Trevor Lawrence, who appreciates having that deep threat guy for him. So while Malik Neighbors, in my opinion, had the better season at first glance, it's not, in my opinion, just about the first season, but how he progressed. And I think Brian Thomas Jr., if they get the head coaching position right, has a better chance to progress because he has a quarterback who's going to appreciate him a lot more. Whereas the Giants might be a little bit unsettled concerning how the draft might pan out for them. So this is not an indictment of Malik Neighbors. He himself had a very incredible season with a lot of inconsistent quarterback play. But I just believe that Brian Thomas Jr. has more room to grow and improve and mature in this Jags offense, where he's going to be very appreciated. Whereas Malik Neighbors still has some things to figure out in terms of who his quarterback might be. Then last but not least in this team, the tight end position, this one is easy as well. Mr. Brock Bowers broke the rookie record, obviously, set by Mike Dicker for most receiving yards by a tight end this season. No biggie. I think that Brock Bowers, out of all the receiving threats in this rookie class, truly was the most special one. I feel like he's going to be a difference maker for Las Vegas, no matter what happens, no matter what direction they take in the draft. But I do think that when you look at the landscape of the AFC West, they're not far behind if they can nail this offseason, if they can get the right head coach, if they can address their needs in the draft accordingly, and do well in free agency, maybe looking for a quarterback who could be a bridge option at potentially draft a guy in the 25 draft. Brock Bowers really has a chance to be something special outside of just this season. And that's why I think out of all these players, out of all these teams, Brock Bowers is going to be one of the most appealing players to monitor, whether it be from a fantasy perspective, from a real-life perspective, from a Raiders fan perspective, just because of how special he can be. So, overall, that is the all-rookie team offense for this 24 class. It has really been very impressive. But coming up next on the show, we transition to college football, looking at the All-American team, and that offense as well. Very good one as well, looking ahead to the future of the 2025 NFL Draft. We'll be right back after this short break.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it?